GigGab, episode 535 for Monday, May 25th, National Tap Dance Day 2026. And before I play the theme music, I'm going to tell you something. You can already tell this sounds different. I'm going to tell you why. I am, and I'll explain. Actually, you know what? I'll wait. I'll wait. But I will tell you that it's not the best, most pristine sound. There is about 10% of what you're about to hear, maybe less, 5%, that's a little overmodulated because of the microphone that I used, and it'll all be explained. Uh, but I did something that I've never done. I listened back to this right after I recorded it to make sure that it was going to be listenable. And it is. Of course, if you find that it's not listenable, then skip to, a different episode. And I'll be back next week in front of my regular microphone with actually Stu Diaz is coming on next week. But this was an experiment, and come along for the ride with me, so to speak. And let's see what happens. So, yeah, GigGab, National Tap Dance Day, 2026. Here we go. Greetings, folks, and welcome to GigGab, the podcast by, for, and about working musicians here in, I don't know, on I-89 South in northern New Hampshire. I'm Dave Hamilton, and I thought I'd try an experiment here with recording an episode as I drive myself home from a gig. You know, the whole idea when Paul Kent, who we had on last week, obviously, and I started this, was that we wanted something to listen to on the way home from gigs. Now, obviously, we never were able to listen to our show. Thankfully, Cover Band Confidential came out, and so we got to start listening to Adam and Dan, which is awesome. But that was the whole thing. This is the first time that if this makes it out, and if it doesn't, well, I'm still doing it, but probably maybe it'll make the archives somewhere. But this would be the first time that I'm recording an episode on the way home from a gig, kind of serving the same purpose. I have about a 90, maybe 100-minute ride home. And so I played with Casual Gravity tonight at Revo Casino in Lebanon, New Hampshire. But I don't think I'm in Lebanon anymore. In fact, if I am, I've done something wrong, because Lebanon's just not that big of a town. And but I've got 46 miles on 89 South here before I turn, and then have another 40 miles to go as I do that. The first place to start is, I might as well start where the gig starts. Now, this is the second time we played there, so I can't feign ignorance. But I knew the first time we played there, I don't know what the lack, I know what made me decide to bring a mixer to this gig. But we had always, I played there, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months after I'd joined the band. And everybody was on ears in this band, but we were just, plugging into the house mixer, at the mercy of whatever that would be for the night. Well, something told me when they said, oh yeah, they have a house thing. And I'm like, okay, like, what's the deal? And we couldn't get an answer. So I threw my mixer in the car. And before my Mackie DL32S, I threw in the car. And before I left for the gig, I mapped out a scene for the band on there, and kind of, dialed in some general EQs, because I just had a feeling. And of course I was right. And I'll explain what happened tonight, because it explains the whole story. Nothing has changed. So I get there, and the wonderful house manager introduces himself to me, and as I'm kind of loading in, I got there ahead of the band. It's Friday of a holiday weekend. Those guys hit a bunch of traffic on the way up. I got lucky, which actually worked out great, because it's kind of a tight load in, and I put up a little reel on Instagram, GigGab podcast. You can see it if you want to see. But it actually worked out nice to kind of stagger our load in. And so I get there and he says, do you guys have a mixer? And I said, yeah, I brought a mixer. And he says, great. He says, I'll just take a feed from that. And I'm like, okay, but do you want, how many channels do you want from us? Right? Do you want do you want some splits? He's like, no, one's fine. I'm like, okay, but then you can't control the mix out in the house, And he's like, well, I trust you guys. Like, you guys can do it. I'm like, what? I appreciate the trust, but it's not so much trust. It's we're blind to what's happening. We can't hear what's happening out there. He's like, oh, do you need speakers? I'm like, oh, no, sorry, you misunderstand. We're all on ears. We can mix our own ears, but we can mix what's happening out in front. But A, we're, busy playing. And B, we can't hear ever what it sounds like out front. So would you like control so that I could give you like a submix of the vocals and a submix of the guitars and like, those kinds of things. So you just have a little bit of balance. He's like, no, one's fine. One mix, one signal from you guys is fine. He's like, I'll adjust the volume. Like, okay, sure enough. And so that was how the night went. There was some fun little feedback to dial out of their system from the stage. I'm still not sure why that happened, but all fine. So that was, that was how the night started, and it actually went fairly well. They changed the rule at this club since the last time we were there. It is a casino, and we were informed that the band was not permitted to have alcohol until after we played. And I figured, well, I certainly don't need alcohol. I don't need alcohol to play. Certainly don't need it after I play. I want to pack up and do this. I want to get on the road. I got a podcast to record. So the band, I think this was the first. It certainly wasn't the first gig that each of us have done sober, but I think it was the first gig that this band has done sober, and it actually went really well. Everybody played well. I think some tempos were a little fast. The ones that we didn't count to a click, of course, which is yet another, man, I love having a click to count songs off to, because it's so nice not to let adrenaline distract us and let adrenaline drive. And adrenaline can go both ways, right? If you're tired, you're dragging. If you're, amped up, it's like, it makes a difference. If you haven't done it, if you're on ears, or even if one person's, if the person counting in the songs is on ears, I recommend trying it. It's quite a thing, and it makes a big difference, in my opinion. I made a little list of things to talk about. We recently did those Boston Cream gigs. Man, it really came together well. And I learned some things about how to learn some things that I wanted to share. And a lot of it was actually relearning things. We'll start with harmonies, vocal harmonies. My experience singing started just kind of off the cuff. Band I was in I guess it would have been college was when I started. It was a band called Go Figure, and we needed harmonies, and I knew I could sing and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be involved in the harmonies in this band, and I was, and it worked out great. It was an original band, so like it's fairly certainly you can map out harmonies in an original band and build stacks and all those things and make it even better. But especially in an original band, you can certainly get away with everybody kind of just singing where they're comfortable and maybe tweaking something if something is, out of tune or you have an idea, but it's yours to build, right? Whereas singing cover songs, depending on the song and depending on the band, you can certainly get away with that kind of thing too. But you can also, think about and learn intervals and building stacks and all that stuff. And I'd never really done the building stacks thing. But I did right at the same time in college when I was in this band and learning. I was taking uh, music theory. I was taking harmony and theory, and as part of harmony and theory, I had a sight singing lab 3 mornings a week at 8 a.m. on the other side of campus in a winter semester in the plains of Connecticut. So there were some cold mornings, and certainly I was not warmed up to sing. But it didn't matter. It was not about singing with great tone or anything. It was just about singing in tune, hearing harmonies, and singing intervals. All that interval training. And now you can do this on your phone, man. Like that interval training stuff is locked into me, and you know, it's locked in. Sometimes it's a little beneath the surface, but it is locked in, and it makes a big difference. Just learning some interval training, so I highly recommend that. But then I wound up played in that original band, and then the cover bands that I was in, we always wound up just singing, where we were comfortable and learning how to blend and doing very well with it. The band that probably set me on the path of thinking it's always going to be this easy was Fling, especially Fling doing cover songs. Well, also originals, but when Fling was doing a lot of covers, which was probably the period, it ended sort of when COVID lockdowns hit, but it was sort of beginning to wind down going into that. But certainly for the period of, maybe the 10 years prior to that, Fling was playing, at least 2 times a month, sometimes 4 times a month. And we knew how to sing together. We had just figured out how to sing together, and we didn't really have to work at it. We were doing it often enough. Aaron and I, our keyboard player, he and I just knew how to sing together from the first time that we sort of stumbled into it. And then Mike, our guitar, one of our guitar players, joined that kind of that blend. He was kind of the number 3 harmony. And then Russ, our other guitar player, would always take like a low drone, but to fill it out. And Burke, when our bass player, when he was in the band for that long stretch there, he was good at singing harmonies. He was also good at singing leads. And so we became a vocal band, and it was easy. And we got confident with it, which was great. We deserved the confidence. It wasn't undeserved confidence at all, but it led me to believe that I was capable of doing that in any band. And that, it turns out, is not true. In some bands, you need to honor the process. And I had gotten so far removed from the process that I resisted it for a long time. And as we were, we do these underground gigs, which was what the Boston Cream thing was, where we, pick a genre or a band or something, and we cover them. And it's with a bunch of people that have played music in musical theater. Some people are more on the musical theater side, some are more on the rock and roll side, but everybody's kind of lived in both worlds, which is wonderful and really talented. But everybody there is at least somewhat comfortable building vocal stacks, and some people are not at all comfortable just singing where they're comfortable, right? They want to be told what to sing. So that group defaults to using the, here's your part, go learn this part and sing it. And that, I had been so far removed from all of my schooling, just temporarily, time-wise, that I wound up, kind of resisting that. And for this Boston thing, I was like, no, I want to be involved in this. I want to be involved in the vocals. I know these parts fairly well, but I know that I'm going to have to work at this. And so I used an app called Moises, Moises, to, what that does is you feed it an MP3 of a song, and it breaks out the tracks. There's many, many ways you can do this. Of course, Moises just happens to be an easy one, and does it fairly well. And it'll break out, if you want it to, you can choose what you have it break out. You have to break out, guitars, drums, bass, and you can pull out vocals and then harmony vocals. I wish you could pull out more than one harmony vocal. I've talked to them about this. They say they're working on it, so we can hope. But I made a mix where the lead vocal, the vocals were, at 100% and everything else was at 20%. And I panned it hard left, hard left for the lead vocal, hard right for the harmonies. So at least I had some, stereo separation, and they were very present. I could hear them. And then I started kind of just immersing myself in it that way. And then also grabbing the sheet music for the vocals. And you can find Sheet Music Direct has a lot of this stuff. You can sometimes find it on Ultimate Guitar. And so I played piano, and I can sight read drum music, no problem. I cannot sight read piano music. It is hard. I'm doing a lot of, Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge and all that stuff. And then, of course, with, the Boston Harmonies, you do your Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge to know that the top line is F, and then the line above it is A, and the line above that's C, and the line above that's E, and that's where you're living with those Boston Harmonies a lot of the time. But it's fine, I know how to do it, and plunk it out either on a real piano, or I use I can't think of the piano app that I use on the iPhone. It's a new one that I stumbled into. Actually, a listener of my other podcast, Matt GigGab, told me about it. And it's great. It's got a great organ sound on it. I want to say it's not Tiny Piano. Maybe it is. I'll put a link in the show notes. The show notes will be brief for this one because I'm not doing them. I usually build the show notes while I'm recording. I'm not doing that right now. But I'll put a link to that. But even just, plunking it out on the piano. And our keyboard player who takes the role of music director in the Underground, Andrew Strout, he is great at doing all of this, and he will do it for us. And it's great to have it done for you. But the process of I noticed on whatever the last one was, like, he came to rehearsal and just knew all this stuff. And it was like, he doesn't just know this stuff. He knows it because he sat down with it. He spent time with it. He built all these tracks for all of us. So of course he knows it. He played all the tracks. I'm like, well, I can do that too. And let me tell you, that's the way to learn this stuff, is like suffering through playing the part. And like, as you do it, you see the intervals on the piano, and then it's easier to know what you're doing. And at least for me. So, yeah, highly recommended. So that became my process for the Boston Cream gig. And I think it, I'm certainly not too cool to admit that that's going to be my process for a lot of things. And it's going to, I think it, I've relearned how to learn harmonies, so I'm excited about that. And, I feel like I've unlocked something, which I really am stoked about. We might as well stay on the subject of the Boston Cream thing, because it's here, and I had another thing. I posted a video on my personal page of us playing Foreplay Long Time live at the first of the two gigs. There'll be more videos. We have recordings of the whole thing with pro mixes and all that stuff. But this was just a crowd shot on an iPhone. It sounded good, and we played it really well. And there's those in Foreplay. There's those triplets, and the drums play those along with the organ at times. And it's crash, snare, snare, crash, snare, snare, crash, snare, snare is what those triplets, become. And Buddy Gibbons, who has been on the show a couple times and is a phenomenal drummer, commented, he's like, interesting that you're playing those single strokes. So I was just playing it, right, left, right, 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 left, right, left, right, left, right, left, which meant I was going back and forth, and I'd play the first crash on the right hand and the second crash on the left hand, and just going back and forth. And he commented, that's so strange that you're doing that. I'm like, well, what would you do? And he's like, well, I'm just stuck in the marching world. And so he's like, I would just play all of the crashes with the right hand and all the snares with the left hand. So it'd be right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left. And in neither one of these things is wrong, obviously, but that seems so. I spent a lot of time in marching too, and I think I resisted. I mean, I didn't resist. I learned a lot from marching, and I thank goodness for it. My chops are at where they are because of it. They like that is the thing that gets your hand chops up, no question about it. But I was always pretty good at fast single strokes. So where I have trouble on the drum set is playing double strokes, like around the toms, and that sort of thing. On the snare, not so much, because again, I did it so much. But like when your hands are in a different spot, those double strokes on the toms feel very different than double strokes on the snare. And it's something I've been working on, but I would never, that would not be my default live. And I like it because that feels like, and this is not a slight against Buddy at all. Again, phenomenal drummer. But that feels so right-handed to me to do that, to hit like all the accents with the right hand. It's like, I have a left hand. It's quite capable. And I'm somewhat ambidextrous behind the kit. So it's like, well, why wouldn't I want to exercise that part of my brain? And I really like the feeling, and I'm sure this happens on other instruments too, that feeling that you have in your brain when you know both sides of your body are kind of working equally. It's fun. So I'm curious for the drummers out there, or really, you know, anyone playing an instrument with, you know, both sides of your body. Do you wind up being more dominant with one hand, or do you find that you have facility, you know, because you're a musician, you have facility that way? I'd love to know. Let's see. What else is on my list here? I need to get insurance for my drums. There's a company we've mentioned on the show many times. We changed insurance companies for our homeowners, and it's no longer covering our stuff. I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. It's a great company, and they are the ones that I'm going to go with. I want music instrument insurance or something. It's not that, but that will also be in the show notes. I promise. Maybe that's it. I don't know. How long has this been recording here? It's an experiment. I'm sure it doesn't sound fantastic. So maybe a 22-minute podcast is enough to suffer through. Maybe it's so bad that this will never make it to the light of day, and I might as well save my throat for recording when I'm in front of my good mic. Yeah, that's good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Were there moments tonight at the gig? Probably. I have 2 gigs tomorrow. Those are both going to be there with Monkey Fist, which is I call it the acoustic thing that I play with. Everything's amplified these days. Of course, we sing into microphones, but we are playing 2 gigs tomorrow. One is like a private birthday party for Johnny D, our singer's one of his relatives. I think it's for his brother, and that's at like an Elks Club. So that will be a gig where people can smoke in the same room that we are playing, and I'm sure they will take advantage of that opportunity. And then the evening gig is at another private club. It's not an Elks Club, but it's similar kind of vibe. Great people, salt of the earth. It's a biker. I think the foundation of the crowd is bikers. I don't think you have to be a biker to join, but they will also take full advantage of being able to smoke indoors. And so this might be the best you hear my voice, certainly for speaking all between now and Monday, when I'm supposed to be releasing whatever this episode becomes. And Monkey Fist, we're just singing all night long. Like, there's no guitar solos really. And I think it's just the 3 of us. Sometimes we do bring a bass player in because it's a long gig. It's like a 4-hour night. We play 3 full sets, and we're just singing the whole time. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. Johnny D, I mentioned earlier that Fling was the place where I, got confident being able to sing harmonies. That's also true with Johnny D, with Monkey Fist, which kind of grew at the same time that Fling grew. And John and I, it's easier when it's just 2, for sure, to just kind of jump in and blend. But John and I blend together so ridiculously well. And it's magic. And it's wonderful. But yeah, that also gave me that confidence of just being able to just sort of do it by feel. And, and I will continue to do it by feel with John. Casual, we do it mostly by feel with Harmonies. But there's some that we've, like Any Way You Want It from Journey, those Journey Harmonies. It's a simple stack. In fact, my part is I take the middle part, and it's basically a monotone line with one note that goes, I think, up a, any way you want it, that's the way you, any way you want it. That's it, but otherwise it's monotone, which sometimes can be a really hard, I call that the George harmony, right? Because that's what George Harrison was stuck with all the time. You hear the Beatles breaking things down, and George will come up with some melodic harmony, and John will be like, or you could just sing the same note all the way through. It actually works. And then George would just do it, and he could find those notes. That's the hard part about the George harmonies, just finding those notes. But anyway, we have those Monkey Fist gigs tomorrow, which I am quite looking forward to. And then I will peel off my clothes, and I will strip naked outside before I go in the house, and put my clothes in a bag, and then bring that bag up to the laundry room, and I will put them straight in the wash, and then I will put myself straight in the shower, and wash the smoke off of me. And I will take everything that was in the club out of my car immediately after the 20-something minute drive home, because ain't no way I want my car smelling like that the next day. I've made that mistake. So, yeah. So that's on the docket for the weekend. I should mention my throat. I haven't really talked about this on the show. Starting in September, my throat got really, I just started having this thing where I was like, I couldn't do what I'm doing here, talking, solo. The solo episodes that I did for this show were just a disaster for me. And as was, just talking in general, my throat would get really fatigued really, really quickly. I almost felt like I was out of breath. And it took a long time. We tried all kinds of different things, and, it just came on suddenly. And it turns out it's mainly driven by allergies, mostly a dust mite allergy. That's I did all the testing and everything, and that helped a lot, and it left me with a little bit of asthma too, and I believe it. And I've asked every doctor that I've seen, now that we've kind of figured out what it is, why do you think I have this? And they always ask me, well, did you move? Did this change? This changed? I'm like, no, nothing changed. And I let them go through their 20 questions until I get sick of it. And then I tell them, look, what I should tell you is in June and July of last year, I had Lyme disease. And instantly they're like, oh, that's the reason. Lyme disease messes with your immune system and resets some things. So right now, and so presumably that's why this started. But it also means my body hasn't been in this habit for very long, and I don't want to let this habit settle in. So I'm on antihistamines, are the thing that really helps me currently. But I also got on immunotherapy, which is like a long-term thing. You do it for probably between 1 to 3 years. I'm doing these daily drops sublingually under the tongue, and they after I did the allergy test, they cooked up whatever the concoction is that gives me like low doses of it. It's like almost homeopathic, but it's actually the real, it's more than one step beyond homeopathic, right? It's the actual stuff, not just like pieces of molecules and stuff. And I'm on the like ramp up dose right now, but I think in June I go to like the 5 times the ramp up dose. And they say with the drops, and especially for somebody in my condition, that, I should start actually seeing an improvement. And maybe I already am. Like I am seeing an improvement. I don't know if it's just the antihistamines or whatever, but I'm eager to retrain my body that it doesn't need to be allergic to this stuff. And I'm really stoked that like my throat came to just before we started rehearsals for these Boston Cream gigs. And I was so happy to be able to sing all those high harmonies and the falsettos where I needed to, and just be comfortable with it. Yeah, so notice what your body is telling you, I guess, is the thing. As we get older, sometimes we can just chalk things up to, well, I'm older, so my throat's going to change. Like we've all heard singers have their throats change. We've heard radio announcers and DJs have their throats change, and of course my throat's changing. My body is aging, like better than the alternative. But my throat, and you could, well, not this recording on this microphone, but you can probably listen back to GigGabs from September, October, November, December was bad, and my throat's finally. It takes a long time for the throat to heal, which is why it's tough to like figure out what the cause is, because you got to like treat it for a month before it chills out, like starts to actually be good again. But yeah, listen to your body, folks. We're all in this together, and share if you've been through something like this that's like impacted your performing and all of that stuff. Share, because somebody else, guaranteed, somebody else in the audience is going through it and doesn't know why, and might just be chalking it up to we're getting old, like it's older. So please, we'll share. We're not going to make not going to be we're not going to obsess about it, but we'll share, like I did here, maybe even in a more compressed way. I have all the time in the world. So, I like this. It's not that I like the sound of my own voice. I like the fact that my voice actually works. So I'm kind of stoked, but, yeah, all right, I'll let you go. Thank you for bearing through this. I hope it's good enough to release. If it's not, well, I'll do it again and you'll never hear this, or maybe you'll hear bits and pieces of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for everything. Thanks for, subscribing to the podcast, of course, and also with what we're doing on the socials. We have the GigGab Green Room too on Facebook. I don't know that that's the right place for it. We'll see. But for those of you that have joined that, it's awesome having you there. We're having a blast chatting about it. It's $5 a month, and it's kind of it's the green room, right? It's the safe haven on social media from, the mania that's out there. Although, I will say, and like I was saying when Mike Schulte was on, the vast majority of comments on all the reels that we're doing are very, very positive. I love that. And you call me out when I put something stupid up. So I love that too. Thanks for everything. Really, it's been an amazing run, and I feel like every 6 months, I feel like we're just getting restarted. There's more to do. So, thank you, and always be performing. Woo-hoo! Later.